The United States is proposing that foreign visitors provide their social media history over the last 5 years to enter the country, including those from Australia, Germany, Japan and the UK who can now enter without a visa. US Customs and Border Protection is adding social media as a mandatory data element as part of the screening process for travelers entering the US under the visa waiver program. The proposal was given a 60-day notice with the request for comments. It would apply now to travelers from about 40 countries who can stay in the US for up to 90 days without a visa and are screened before travel under an electronic system known as ESTA. The plan is the latest in a series of measures from the Trump administration aimed at restricting entry. The country is also set for its first drop in foreign tourists in about 5 years, with 67.9 million visits forecast for this year, down from 72.4 million in 2024. This has left many international aspirants anxious and confused. At the heart of this sudden decision lies a policy shift, the expansion of social media vetting. But what exactly is this vetting and why is it significant for the visa process? Well, let's tell you. Social media vetting is a form of background screening where officials review a visa applicant's publicly available online activity to assess potential security risks or verify information provided in applications. 85,000 visas, meanwhile, have been revoked since January. According to officials, the suspension only affects new appointment slots and not applicants who already have scheduled interviews. However, for many prospective students planning to enroll in US colleges and universities for the upcoming terms, the uncertainty could delay admissions, visa issuance and even travel plans. Joining us to discuss this story further is Ambassador Bhashwati Mukherjee, former diplomat, Anish Gawande, national spokesperson, NCP, Sharad Pawar faction is joining us live. Rashmi Samant, author, is also live with us on the broadcast. Joyita Basu, editor of the Sunday Guardian, is with us live as well. Ambassador Mukherjee, let me begin with you first. What has prompted this decision by the United States administration and how will this affect prospective visa applicants from India?
Well, apparently, President Trump was enraged at the incident involving the Afghan national who had been actually serving with the US Armed Forces and his attack. I think that it's a very overstated reaction to one isolated incident. The guy could have been suffering from trauma, etc., etc. There are many reasons why he could have behaved the way he did. But it also shows that the President of the United States has a very thin skin, because if you go through the media records since he became president for the second term, if he went through my social media, if he vetted my social media, I'm sure I would never get an American visa. Not that it bothers me at all. I'm not planning to visit United States, but I wouldn't get it because I've made some not seditious remarks. I've made some unflattering comments about, tariffs and all the rest of it. They might very well say that this is seditious behavior coming from a diplomat. So, because when you are on social media, you have freedom of speech, provided it's not seditious or it does not attract any communal passions or etc., etc. So you could make a comment saying that, President Trump's tariff policy towards India is very unfair for this and this reason. Is that going to be taken as something critical against the United States? We don't know. We don't know by what criteria they're going to discuss and decide on our social media posts. So for the same reason, I would say that it's against freedom of speech and liberty, provided we respect that obviously those who are advocating jihad or murder or whatever, obviously they have to be vetted separately. But for normal people who may write an impulsive reaction to something they see in a newspaper or in the TV debate, if you hold that against them to deny them a visa, it would be very unfortunate. And coming from the United States, which is supposed to have been the torchbearer of freedom of expression and all the freedoms, in fact, it's very unfortunate. And I'm surprised that they've extended it to countries like Australia, etc., which are visa-free, because it means that clearly President Trump does not want anyone who is personally critical about him from any country to visit United States. Otherwise, why on earth should he include Australia and other such countries that have had a visa-free regime with the Americans for a very, very long time. So altogether, not a good development. We have to see how it rolls out. But I think a lot of students would be anxious because when one is young, one makes a lot of comments on social media, which one doesn't maybe really mean. And I don't think that should be held against the individual, provided it's not seditious. So we have to see, Uday, how it rolls out. But I think from now, one will have to be very careful what one posts on social media, particularly about Trump and tariffs. I call him President Tariff.
Right.
Stop doing.
Okay. Anish, let me draw you in here now. How concerned should the youth in India be at this development? How concerned should prospective students who are applying to the US be? Prospective job seekers as well? How concerned and worried should they be at this development?
Uday, firstly, great to be on your show and thank you for having me on. I want to start off by saying that I think what is important to bear in mind today is that this screening of social media accounts is patently absurd and goes against the very ethos of a liberal arts education that the US has promised to so many, including myself, right? I think on the one hand, the US is directly opposed to China, but on the other hand, it's becoming more like China, spying upon not only its own citizens, but also others across various borders. Now, I went to the United States as a student in 2014 to Columbia University, and at that time, I had no social media screening. I was very vocally critical of President Donald Trump when he assumed office for the first time, and of many of his actions. As a student on that campus in New York City, I took part in protests against Obama as well when we had the Millions March for Climate, saying that the world was not doing enough for climate change. We had Black Lives Matter, and I could go out on the streets in front of Donald Trump's presidency and not be afraid that my citizenship status in that country or my sort of visa status in that country would be affected. That is precisely the promise of a good education that teaches you to be critical, that also teaches you that there are laws that need to be followed, but within the ambit of free speech, we must not impede the rights of anybody, including international citizens, right? Particularly Indian students. I'll tell you this, when I went to Oxford, Rashmi was my Oxford Union, my class president, the university president. She was unceremoniously ousted in a racist set of attacks that led to her having to resign. At that time, many of us stood up for her. We spoke out against the UK, against institutional racism at Oxford. Imagine if the UK followed a similar procedure and said that whatever you post on social media could be held against you or prevent you from getting a visa to go to the UK again. These were just things that were being fought for. The treatment meted out was unacceptable. The country and its institutional racism were at fault. As an international student, were you then expected not to speak out? Were you supposed to be a sort of colonial subject, bowing down before some sort of higher master and saying, in your law, in your land, I will not criticize you? I mean, this is neo-colonialism, right? So I think we have to be very careful, because what starts off as social media screening will evolve into a complete sort of ban on any criticism of the government whatsoever. And like Ambassador Mukherjee, I don't have a US visa currently, nor do I intend to get one in the near future, given that I don't particularly like being stopped at borders for obscene sort of reasons. But for thousands of young people who've gotten scholarships to go abroad, who work so hard, who've gotten their one ticket to study in a new place, how can you use their past against them, especially when they're this young?
Yes. This is a wrong decision, believes Anish. Rashmi Samant, is that something you agree with as well? Also, how then are these students who possibly are concerned, stressed about these developments going to alleviate their, going to reduce their anxiety? Is this something now that they're going to have to work towards possibly reducing their free speech online if they want to get these visas? How do they tackle this dilemma now, given these regulations now have come into effect? Of course, they're being criticized world over, but that hasn't led the US to back down. How do then prospective job aspirants and students for India, which does contribute huge numbers of the prospective H-1B applicants and other categories of US visas as well, how do they then prepare for these new rules?
Well, Uday, firstly, I'd like to start off by saying that this kind of regime defeats the very purpose of education. I think on an educational campus, you're supposed to explore ideas, you're supposed to be vocal about what you think, your political ideology, you're expected to swing from one extreme to the other. If you look at, many autobiographies and biographies of great leaders, they've done all of that during their days on campus. All they did was discuss, debate, have all kinds of ideas, and then form their firm opinion of the world. And that doesn't necessarily have to be seditious. It's just their freedom to explore where they stand on a number of issues. Why this is problematic is that this defeats that very purpose. If a kid is extremely scared of saying something, of thinking a certain way, then what's the point of education? What's the point of that kid even being on that university campus? The second thing is that I feel that this whole thing that I'd like to call cancel culture, it's a very slippery slope. I think I've realized during my own time that the mob can be whipped up not just to, persecute someone who's saying wrong things or, doing wrong things, but also it can be weaponized in a way to just bring down a moral, upstanding person. And I saw that happen because there's no end to it. There's no end to what's perceived as wrong, because it's just perception that is amplified. And these days labels are made in a way to stick very easily. So these online mobs, they don't even stop to look at what was the real reason why someone was cancelled or why someone was shown the door. They just look at this label that sticks, and somehow that is used to justify a particular outcome. So I feel that it's a very slippery slope, and it can just be easily weaponized to get rid of detractors, to get rid of people who are critical of the regime, to get rid of even constructive criticism or another school of thought. So I think it's really unfair. And under such conditions, I think it becomes extremely difficult for Indian students to even make that choice of going abroad, because they incur huge debts when they make the decision to go abroad and study, which means that they have to have some sort of guarantee that they can stay there for long enough to recover that debt, to build some sort of stability. That's something that weighs heavily on every Indian student who goes abroad. And today, more than ever, I see my own juniors not taking that decision just out of the fear that they will not be able to make good on the expenses, the debt that they're going to incur in this whole journey. Now, what that means for India and what that means for America is, I think what that means for India is that, of course, good things. No longer there's going to be brain drain. What that means for America, I think education is a $1 trillion business. They're obviously going to see losses. But what that means for that kid, I think, is that he or she stops having the choice to study at a university of their choice, and they have to make choices which are now sort of imposed upon them just because one leader cannot take criticism.
Joyita Basu, let me quickly draw you in here. Joyita, do you believe these curbs are unlikely to be rolled back despite this outrage? And also, if they are unlikely to be rolled back, then what are you expecting the next 6-8 months to look like for prospective visa aspirants? Do they brace for a turbulent few months and few checks at the application center?
Uday, I don't know who all applied for a US visa this year. I did earlier and I got it also. I mean, as Ambassador Mukherjee knows. The thing is, you see, I got it, and one of the foremost criteria over there is that you have to give your social media handles. They check your social media handles. So whatever they are talking about right now, it is not new. It has existed at least this whole year. I had to give my Facebook, my X handle, everything, YouTube, everything I had to give over there. And it was clearly mentioned that you may have to provide the password at the time of clearing your immigration. You may have to provide the password to the officer there so that they can check your social media record. So this is not new. what is happening right now is that, as is the case with the Trump administration, it is a knee-jerk reaction to, of course, whatever is what happened with that particular Afghan case, but also he is kind of playing to the gallery, and in his case, it is the MAGA vote. It is that, hardcore, radical. I mean, I'm increasingly seeing them as, racist. Now they call themselves, some section call themselves Groiper, some of them are calling themselves America first, some of them are calling America only. So these are hardcore racist white supremacists. And it is not just X, it is not just on social media that you are seeing these people. From whatever accounts I'm getting to hear from people in the US, it is now spilling over. I mean, racism always existed. The thing is that it is now spilling over to the mainstream as well, at the public. So you see, this is Trump's way of trying to pacify his vote. Otherwise, why is he putting this on this? This is, for example, H1B. I'm not going to talk about the students because everyone here has already talked about the students. I would like to talk about the H1B case. You know what he has done? Now these H1B visa holders, they have to come back and they have to reapply or basically renew their visa. So what Trump has done, the Trump administration has done, is that one of the reasons they are giving is that social media vetting. So their interviews are being delayed. So people who have come maybe in November, they don't get to go back before March. Or they're saying your interview is going to be held in March. One of the reasons is that we are screening your social media. So this is also, at one level, it is just an excuse to basically stop immigration, to basically pacify and make his base happy. And his base, if you have noticed, it is already, they are kind of, that base is, I would say, disintegrating for various reasons. I mean, for various reasons. Trump is not racist enough. Trump is not supremacist enough. Trump is not MAGA enough. Trump has got that Epstein baggage. Then, of course, there are things like prices and all. Trump is not coming down hard enough on the Indians. Trump is not stopping Indians from coming into the US, all these things. So whatever he's doing right now, he is just doing it primarily to, by the way, they just lost. The city of Miami's, that mayor, after 30 years, the Democrats flipped it. And this flipping is happening in state after state,
Right.
in state after state.
Right.
So this is all an excuse.
Okay. Do we expect a rollback, or is this something now that will be policy going ahead, Ambassador Mukherjee? We are learning that the External Affairs Minister has said that our high commissions, our consulates are going to be helping students out wherever needed, or prospective visa aspirants who are, of course, from Indian origin. Also, he's urged the US not to make minor issues a major one for any aspirants, and to overlook any sort of aberration if it has indeed happened. But do you expect any sort of major change in policy?
I agree with Joyita that he is desperately trying to keep his MAGA base, which is increasingly racist, together. He has already displeased them by making statements
Yes.
like, I can't pick somebody out of an,
But how can this be taken up by India, Ambassador Mukherjee? Can this be taken up by India at a diplomatic level?
We've already done it, but we haven't made a big deal about it in the media. We've already done it. We will continue to do it, and at some point it will be rolled back. I suspect that he's going to take a beating in the midterms, and after that, it will be rolled back. Because he's already, as I said, made comments like, I can't take some unqualified guy who's queuing up for a job to get him to make nuclear missiles for me. Clearly an indication that he has understood that, for instance, the Indian workers, for that matter, the South Koreans whom he threw out and then got back, these are highly qualified people. And if they leave, it's the United States that is the loser. As far as India is concerned, if they come back, they come back. If we can give them something, that's fine. Otherwise, just move to some other destination. There's no shortage of demand for highly qualified people. So he has understood that, and it's well known. When I was in New York for 3 years, I remember Americans complaining to me that a lot of guys who come out of high school can barely do arithmetic, math, and can barely sign their name. That's their system of education, primary education and secondary education. So if he thinks that he's going to get these half-literate guys of his MAGA base to build his nuclear missiles for him, he's sadly mistaken. So he knows that. But as Joyita said, the Democrats are on a roll, and the Republicans, the moderate ones, are furious. His MAGA base is disintegrating.
Right.
And these kind of racist measures, where MAGA is even telling J.D. Vance, send Usha home.
Yes.
Why? Why? Because she's Indian.
Yes.
She's not. She's American.
Yes.
But that's my point. So I think it is disintegrating.
Okay.
We just have to hold tight and wait for the midterm.
Okay. Anish, and at the end of the day, of course, is it going to be the universities of the US who are going to be the sufferers? I mean, look at the high volume of Indian students that go there. Are they going to be the ones who will obviously suffer because, the Indian students will not land up if they don't get visas? Also, the tech companies, the other companies in the US are, of course, also sweating at this current juncture because H1B processing time is taking a while, and if obviously these measures become more stringent, their smartest base gets eroded. So who suffers? Isn't it the US?
Uday, as has been pointed out before, the process is the punishment, right? When you add 6 months of processing time to a visa for a student who gets an acceptance in March and who has to start an education in August, you automatically sort of ensure the student has to sacrifice a year, right? Because they're only going to get a visa to go study the next year. So clearly the first people who will be suffering are the students today. Listen, American universities will get enough students from other parts of the world as well, right? The problem is for the students who are currently suffering, the government needs to act. And unfortunately, Ambassador Mukherjee here, I must disagree with you. The government has not done nearly enough. It is embarrassing today that the US can behave like a bully on the world stage and we do not speak up. Why are we not taking this up more seriously? There are thousands of Indian students, including those on scholarships given by the government of India. The government of India is losing money and is losing productive assets who are going to go to the US not to settle there, but to come back with their expertise, right? So why has the government not taken this up more seriously? Why is the US not being convinced to roll this back? Why have we not applied our diplomatic heft? It may not need to be done by the media, but like Joyita pointed out, this has been happening for months now. This is not new. So what is the government doing and why has it not been able to get any tangible benefits for Indian students? The irony, of course, is that Donald Trump himself used to be a Democrat, and if his wild swings of political opinion are accommodated in his own country, then the experimentation that all young people do when they are at university, when they are young, is being forbidden over here today. And I think the challenge is, I have very different opinions from when I was sort of in college, and I had the freedom to explore. But this is a trend, and I will make it political here, not just amongst the MAGA fan base, but amongst our government here as well. Let us not forget that the government tried to use the presence of Karl Marx's capital in the Bhima Koregaon case to say that everyone in Bhima Koregaon was an urban Nakshal, was an anti-national.
Now you also
apart in India, then we should not only point one finger at the US,
right?
Because three fingers are pointing back.
Now, apart from, of course, an activist, you also wear the hat of a spokesperson of the NCP Sharad Pawar faction, which is why, of course, you made that political point. But fair enough. Unfortunately, there is no representative of the BJP on the panel today to respond to you. But Ambassador Mukherjee does believe, as she said earlier, that the government has taken it up and will do, even though they haven't made a big show of it. But last word to you, Rashmi Samant. Will your advice be to prospective aspirants look elsewhere, look at other universities, look at other countries for jobs, or look in India? What would be your advice to those who are confused, those who are worried today, Rashmi? And also, what's your take? Has the government done enough, or should this be taken up at a diplomatic level with the US?
Well, Uday, I think I speak as somebody who's treaded this path. I'm an Oxford graduate and I make more than my peers by being back here in this country. The economic progress that this country has seen in the past decade is nowhere near what the other countries are seeing at the moment. The GDP growth, be it the job opportunities, etc. I think the best that the young people can do is look at their own country, be part of this growth curve, and not miss out on a great nation that is coming into being right now. I think that is something that the young people need to look out for, because I see so many of my peers who've gone abroad. The horror doesn't just end with getting a university degree in America. The horror persists until the debt is cleared. And every time these kids, I think Joyita made a very legitimate point. Every year they come back to India, they have to get their visa stamped again to go back. Those are the conditions of even having a working visa in the United States. And they are under like constant fear. And I think that's no way to live. And I think the only place where you can have dignity is back home. And I think more and more kids need to make that choice. I wish I made that choice much earlier, but I'm glad I did make it when I did back in 2021. And if it's been any proof, I would like to suggest to every young student looking to go abroad that look for alternative things that you can do in this very country. You have IIMs, IITs, which are at par, if not better. Only stunted because of the sort of neo-colonial ways of ranking universities. These universities are doing exceptionally well, some of the brightest minds. And I would, recommend that they do look at it and be part
Right.
of this growth story instead of,
Okay.
being bogged down by constant fear.
Uday, can I make a quick point? 2 seconds.
Yes, Joyita.
The thing is, you see, as Ambassador Mukherjee will be able to explain it better, I mean, there is something called diplomacy. You do not have to go and pick a fight in public, at least with any country for that matter, and definitely not with the US, because there are a whole lot of other things involved in this,
Okay.
long-term relations.
Okay. My thanks to all of our guests for joining us on this discussion. Let's slip into a short break. Thanks to our viewers for being with us as well.